I only need 5 points to pass.
A friend told me this story and it's too good not to share. She's fine with sharing, but it means I don't have all the specifics. My friend was training to be a wilderness guide. All sorts of terrain and dangerous scenarios. The final part was navigating through a national park with only vague directions. Think of it like the navigation test US Army soldiers go through, which I'm guessing this is based on. She looks over the map and finds the 5 easier checkpoints of the 8 on the list, goes there, and then goes back to base camp. You're back early. You okay? Yeah. Here's my map.
The trainer looks at her map and says you only have 5 locations. There are supposed to be 8. Note, he's just the trainer for the exercise and has nothing to do with her certification. But I need 5 to pass. Did I get them right? But you didn't finish. But did I get the 5 points I need to pass this part of the training? He didn't answer her verbally but rather glared and signed off at the bottom of her map and stormed off. She passed and loves her job. I'm relatively okay with this, because she would have to figure out where all the points are before choosing the 5 easiest ones. Kudos for her confidence/ability. A lot of these field navigation tests tend to have several points in close proximity to each other, so that you need to be confident in your ability to navigate. Else you risk getting the wrong point because it's the one you found. It's also usually why these things have more points to find than you need to pass, in order to provide more chances of success.
Why on earth would anyone want a guide who couldn't properly assess a situation and find the best scenario to achieve the ultimate objective? I sure as hell wouldn't want a guide who took the hard/unsafe routes just because the map says so. Kudos to her.
I did this exact thing doing land nav in the army. Picked 5 of my 10 points closest to the roads. Went out and found them all while jogging briskly. Finished our 6-hour land nav course in 40 minutes. Came back and the LT was like, "There is no way you have all 10 points." I said, "Yeah, I have my 5, can you check them?" They were randomized. He checked, they were all correct, 5 was the passing grade. He said I needed all 10 points filled out but 5 to pass. Went and sat on a stump listening to an audiobook for 30 minutes, wrote random numbers in for the other 5. Came back. He was rather upset, but I was done for the day.
Reminds me of exactly how I went into every final in college. I calculated exactly what score I needed to get the best grade feasible. More than once I walked into a final, did 10 to 20% of the test and walked out with everyone staring at me. I had one professor ask me why, and I told him I needed a 98% to get an A in the class, or a 17% to get a B. And he told us the previous class that the best scores on his finals were typically in the 85% range. So I was better off using that time to study for finals that could actually affect my grade.
That's what you call working smarter, not harder.
Sounds like orienteering. Reminds me of many years ago in college I needed a PE credit. Orienteering was offered with an ROTC instructor. Most of the students were ROTC. I was definitely not. To pass the course we went on a field trip to a remote location. There was a course set up and you had to check in at each checkpoint. Problem was, nobody told me you had to do them in order. I just blasted through them in the most logical routes and ended up in first place. The ROTC instructor was not pleased that a stoner smoked all his grunts. Speaking of the Army Field Nav, I was doing the Field Nav test at WLC a few years ago. It was right after they brought it back. So the course was completely overgrown. No paths to follow. Some kid got lost and wound up a half-hour away. By car. Hitched a ride back lol. Field Nav isn't easy for everyone. Good on your friend for knowing enough to give herself the easy route and the easy passing score.
When I took the cram course for my CPA exam, the teacher said multiple times you only need a 75 to pass. No one will ask about your scores once you pass.
Exactly who you want for the job. Someone smart enough to pass the test. If the test was must make all 8 she would have. Bravo.
Something tells me when he was tested he went for all 8 and was pissed she was clever enough to just pass the test. Ingenious.
Awesome. I'd love to hike with her.
I watched my son do an orienteering competition. About 100 competitors. They were in the 14 and below group. The course provided 8 points requiring about 5 miles of walking. But no restrictions other than arrive first to the end point. My son is the smartest person I have ever met, and I have met a few. He looks at the form, does some calculations for a few minutes. Everyone else is off and running in the summer heat. I am getting a little nervous as he is the last to leave and starts staring around himself for a bit. Start thinking he is nuts when he moves off in a completely different direction than everyone else. Walks about 100 yards and sits down. When one of the judges asks him what he is doing, he advises he has arrived at the end point, which turns out to be correct. Much discussion on if he cheated and how he cheated. They approach me and I tell them to ask him how he did it. Apparently he had mapped the surrounding area using USGS topographic maps that accounted for elevation changes. Then calculated the course in its entirety. When they told him he couldn't use any map but the one provided, he said, "I didn't, just memorized all the distances of all the possibilities. Seemed easier." They allowed he won, but as a compromise asked him to walk the course. I did something similar on my scaffold JM test. I knew all the answers and the last question was doing a material count off of a drawing. So I just guessed on those 6 questions. Still pulled an 87. It's funny how once you get past whatever certificate is required, the score you got doesn't matter. That license, certification, etc., is what matters. Years after taking the USCG license exams for obtaining my marine engineering officer's license, it really doesn't matter what score I got. What matters is I have that license and can sail. I was in calculus class and I wanted to go hunting with my dad. The teacher wouldn't let me take the departmental early or after, so I wrote a simple math equation. I have 100% now, and the departmental is worth 50%. That means I've already passed the course. See ya.
Smart.
We had to go to all the points in the army.
Hey, part of survival is calmly figuring out the best course of action while under pressure. I mean, if the standard for passing is 5, then you only need to find 5 correct ones. I don't know why someone would be bent out of shape for doing what is required of them. To be fair, I'd want the guide that is smart enough to recognize requirements in pass-fail tests, meet the requirements and move on.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epic Eracast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.